Rise and shine, homie. Rise and shine.
First shift 6:30, second shift 12:30. Last shift till 11, and boom, lights out at midnight. You crush it.
Tony, Mo, thank you so much for joining me on Stay Free with Russell Brand.
Great to be with you, brother.
Yes, thank you so much.
Congratulations on your film. I'm very excited to be participating in the launch of City of Dreams, which strikes me as a kind of film that will hugely benefit all of the people that see it. It's the kind of film that people have sort of stopped making these days. Heartening, strong moral centre. Tony, tell me what your personal journey is with the film, why you felt that you had to be involved.
Well, I think I've been involved, my wife and I, for about 8 years with saving children in this area. We had somebody at one of our events one day. We were always promoting people. We've fed 1 billion people over 10 years. Say, like, what's your moonshot? What do you want to do? And this woman talked about she wanted to save all these children. And she was crying, telling me about a friend of hers that, whose child was stolen. So I said, well, what's an organization that does it? Was it Case to Save a Child? And she said, well, it's about $3,500. And there's this organization that does it. I said, I'll put up the first $250,000. Let's see what we can raise right here, right now. We raised $2 million. And then I went to the organization and I went on a trip with them. I went down to Haiti and we saved 37 children. I was undercover with movie scars on my face and so forth. And I got to tell you, Russell, it was one of the ugliest things I've ever seen in my entire life. The inhumanity, these children, 12 years old, 10 years old, chained to a bed, doing tricks 7, 8 times a day. It's beyond your imagination of the worst thing you could ever imagine. But it was also the most beautiful thing seeing these kids when we rescued them and when they were freed. And so my wife and I have participated in funding over 50,000 children's rescues. So, when we did, the Experience the Sound of Freedom, as you know, we beat Disney during July 4th weekend. It was unbelievable. People really moved the story, helped to get the word out. It helped us to raise more money to save more kids. But it also made people feel like it was over there. And what's different about City of Dreams is this is not so much about sexual slavery as it is just labor slavery, children that are enslaved, brought across the border. You hear about 10 million children coming across the border, and it's just overwhelming. The U.S. government said they've lost 300,000 children recently, where they sent them, and now they can't find the kids anymore. And they've been sent to the same location, to the same Uncle John, 1,000 kids, right? So it's obviously a trafficker. But it's too much. But when you follow one child's life, a real story, and you experience what that child does, you can't help but feel it. So this is like a thriller. It keeps you on the edge of your seat, but it's a hero's journey because this young man not only saves himself against all odds, but he saves everybody else too. And then there's a real call to action at the end, like we had with Sound of Freedom. So I could not participate. And Mo has built what, Sly Stallone, Peter Guber, people that are incredible filmmakers are coming out and say this is a masterpiece. People are saying it's Oscar worthy. It got 100% in the first tests, which is unheard of with the critics on Rotten Tomatoes. Even now, it's still 86 with all the mass input to it. So it's a film people will love, but it's also a film that'll save lives.
Seems like the kind of film that could really bring an important message that extraordinarily seems to be one that is being prevented from reaching a large audience. I find it very hard even to speculate as to why the establishment wouldn't want as many people to know as possible that there are 12 million people, 12 million children under conditions of slavery to this day. Some of them the forms of slavery that are difficult even to imagine. And of course, the story of Jesus in your film City of Dreams is a story about a child trapped in labor conditions, and as Tony has already pointed out, we focus on this boy and his dreams, the mechanics of child slavery, the business of getting a kid over the border. Why is it true that influencers are being shadow banned and prevented from talking about the film? Do you think that's because of the issues of the film or the economic model and the threat that films made outside of the establishment present, or do you think it's the issues? I don't know which one to hope for, really.
It's a great question. I can't give you a straight answer. I wish I could. When we did Sound of Freedom, of course, it was a Christian distribution group, Angel Studios. And for some reason, this country being a Christian has become a negative in some way. I don't know how you could possibly explain that. But this one is Roadside Pictures. It's a big studio. It's not tied to any political side. And, this is an issue that it doesn't matter if you're right or left, Republican or Democrat. I mean, this is our children. This is like, it shouldn't matter whose this is. There's no political statement here whatsoever. It's just saying this is what's really happening. And by the way, this is based on real stories. Like Most read this story about these kids just outside of LA in this little city. They had 70 kids underground. They didn't see light for 7 years, all in slave labor, making these materials. So people just don't know this is happening in their backyard, and we want to wake them up to it. But yes, we've gotten about a dozen of our top influencers have said we've been shadow banned. They've sent us the piece saying, that they've been stopped. We don't understand why. I know Zuckerberg just apologized the other day for some of the things that they interfered with. So maybe it's an old algorithm they haven't updated, but we're requesting they clean it up as soon as possible, and hopefully they will.
Yeah, it's an important film for people to see, both in terms of its subject, but also it's an enjoyable film. Mo, how did you tackle the fantasy scenes with the protagonist who dreams of making it as a football star? What kind of techniques were you using to make those films in particular? And was it important to you to contrast the kind of transcendent glory of the child's imagination and innocent wonder with the kind of despair that ultimately ends up being the conditions of his labor?
Yes, definitely. That was one of the decisions I made was I don't want to make a docudrama. I feel like docudramas and documentaries, they scratch the surface of our intellectual curiosity, but they don't kind of hit you. They don't, pull at the heartstrings. And I wanted to make a Slumdog Millionaire, a City of God, and I remember Lee Daniels did this movie called Precious, where there was a woman who was, a young girl being abused, and she would go into like her fantasy world. And I thought that was so interesting. I kind of was like, well, I want to tell this story just from this kid's point of view. And given that he doesn't speak because he represents the voiceless, the 12 million, I wanted to show how he felt through his dreams. So, that was one of the things I thought also that would broaden the audience for the movie. And I knew I would get a little bit of slack from critics who want to focus more on the politics and this and that, but I wanted to reach the most amount of people. And I think most people want to go on a ride. They don't want to be preached to. So those fantasy scenes of him on the soccer field and the nightmare of the shaman and who the shaman turns out to be were very important. And, for me, technically, I shot them at a different frame rate. So I shot the whole movie, at 24, and then I shot those sequences either in slow motion or at 28 frames, which I borrowed from Mel Gibson in The Passion of the Christ, because he shot that whole movie in 28 frames, which I thought was really interesting. So it gave it kind of a flowy sort of feel.
As you know, I am British. Now, when we left the territory of India, we did our very best to responsibly partition it in ways that would cause no problems or wars or religious conflicts down the line. And I would like to criticize America for your ongoing imperialism. That said, is it true that you have personal family history when it comes to the conditions of child labor?
Yes. So, my parents, both my mother and father, were actually born in Sindh, which is now in Pakistan, but used to be India. And during 1947's partition, what happened, my mom had just been born, so she was a baby. My dad was 7, and his father was a public defender. And they'd been kicked out of their homes, and they'd been sent across the border. And for a long time, my dad worked, as a T-boy in sweatshop conditions, in order to provide for the family. And it kind of, it really had a toll on him, because in the movie, he is Jesus, but he's also the abusers. Because growing up, he was it was like, get straight A's, marry an Indian girl, or you choose between the belt and the stick. It was very, black and white with him. And it was a result of the trauma he'd suffered. So working on this film, in a way, for me, was a way to forgive my dad. I say this all the time. In Joseph Campbell's Hero with a Thousand Faces, he says atonement with the father is one of the most important boons for the hero. And the hero has to recognize that the ogre aspect of the father is a reflection of the hero's ego, because the father is actually preparing him for the office of life, whether consciously or unconsciously. So I really was inspired by Joseph Campbell, and that was one of the reasons I wrote the movie as a hero's journey.
Yeah. And it really is, when Mo was 12 years old, he was sharing with me what his father said, Indian girlfriend, do great in school, don't be in trouble. He said, I was doing the opposite of all 3 of those. He got my book and started listening to my stuff, but he also saw Rocky. And this film really has that Rocky feel to it. And because it's really about this person overcomes unbelievable odds and really does do it. But he didn't just save himself, he saves others as well. And so Sly's a friend. And so when he told me that Sly was such a huge influence in his life, I reached out to Sly, and Sly saw the film and loved it, endorsed the film. But also, Mo was so moved. He gave me a message back about how moved he was, and I sent it to Sly, and it moved Sly. I said, look, you're a hero. You're giving back to your hero. It's been a really, beautiful experience.
People are getting moved all over the place. Sly Stallone's moved. You're becoming like the protagonist of your own film, Mo. You're living out this extraordinary journey. You're resolving it. Forgive me if you've already referred to it, but is your father still with us and able to?
No.
I'm sorry to hear that, man.
Unfortunately, he died when I was 15, and that's when I grew up in Hong Kong, and my family moved to London. And I went to the London School of Economics. I lived in London for about 6 years. My brother's still there, but that was the sort of turning point of my life. And no, he's not still with us. Neither is my mom. My mom passed away too. So
I'm sure that your parents will be extraordinarily proud of this incredible achievement. And it seems that given that you are receiving such guidance and tutelage from a great man by whom we are joined, and getting the kind of ridiculous experience of having Sly Stallone sending you weeping messages after you've made your own plucky underdog story about redemption, it seems that things are really working out well for you, Mo. So it seems like you're kind of realizing dreams even as you're telling stories about precisely that phenomena.
It's interesting. You're the first person that's presented it in that way, but I will tell
What'd you expect? What did you expect? What do you think? Just buy the book promo? Is that what you think I'm going to deliver you? Just I'm going to come out here and not examine it and give you something unique, Mo? When you were at the London School of Economics, you must have been aware that one of the defining figures of British culture was good old Russell Brand.
Yes, definitely. But I'll tell you that Tony, this was only a few weeks ago. I was driving back to my place. I live in LA from Whole Foods, and Tony sends me a message, Merry Christmas and Happy Birthday. And I'm like, he's either drinking or he doesn't know that he sent it to me, because I don't usually get a message like that from him. And then I get this video from Stallone, and I just was paralyzed. Like, I just sat in my car and I cried, and I said to myself, all right, no matter what happens from this moment onwards in my life, this movie can fail. I cannot achieve my dreams of making an impact in the world. I'm not a failure anymore, because I was able to move the person that moved me. And I made that decision. I said, anything I see that's negative, I'm going to turn it to positive. So that's one of the greatest gifts anyone has ever given me. And it's funny because I sent Tony a really nice, polished message, a thank you message to send Sly. And of course, he didn't do that. He sent the one that I sent to him where I was weeping. That I was pretty embarrassed about, but it worked out. But
it moved him. Sly talked about, it's so easy, you live in this business to get, hardened a bit. And to see this, that you were so inspired by what he did so many years ago, and that really was touching other kids, it really touched his heart. So, we all have a way to give back in some way, but I really think this film, our goal with this film, Russell, obviously it's a call to action. It's a absolute thriller. You're on the edge of your seat. It'll grab you, but it's also really about, like, what can people do? So afterwards, there's a call to action. People go to the website, and there's all kinds of things you can do. Where you buy your clothes, Mo, you might talk a little bit about what can be done in that area. Plays such a role because of all the subcontractors. You can save a child's life these days. There's one organization that I work with, my wife and I have been working with for many years. They use this incredible AI and this machine learning, and some cities in Indonesia, they've actually taken down these groups by 91%. Like, prostitution's down 91%. It's unheard of. And they can save a child for $500. So we have kids now that are sponsoring to save children's lives. You can volunteer. So we hope that people will be stimulated. But the very minimum we want to do is it's like, what stopped slavery in the United States? It was Uncle Tom's Cabin. Somebody writing the story, a storyteller waking people up until people said, enough of this. And we think this hopefully will be the beginning of that process and waking people up. But Mo, you might share about, what happens to these attractive.
I know, and I'm sure that Russell, I've listened to some of his stuff before, so I know he's going to be on board with this. Like, I presented this to the Labor Department last year, and I said, all the organizations and saving children and all that, I totally get it, but I have a very simple solution that is proven and that I know that will work. And it's as simple as this. I used to work on Wall Street for about 3 months. I worked actually in the City of London, and every single third-party trading office has to have an SEC compliance officer. That's law. And I said, why does this law not exist for all other businesses? Why is it that Gap or Reebok or Whole Foods or whoever they are can subcontract and not have a compliance officer in that facility? And I presented this at a meeting that the Labor Department had, and the lawyer, came up to me and he goes, hey, man, that was a really good idea. And I was like, no, I'm an idiot. I don't know anything. I'm a filmmaker. You shouldn't be saying that to me. You should be implementing this. And of course, nothing's happening with it because I believe, and I'm not an expert, that corporate interests pay for lobbying groups and they decide who make laws. And this is a very simple thing. If this happens, I mean, there's no way this can continue because all those third-party sites are going to have compliance officers in them, and there's going to be $100,000 fine per person per human rights violation. Like, that makes a real impact. And for some reason,
you eliminate all the economic upside for them, and so
right,
the reason disappear. Yeah. So we're working with some people to see if we can get legislation into Congress. We've got people on both sides of the aisle to see what we can do to give it a push.
So it's an entertaining movie that tells an important story that has, as part of it, an activist approach to changing the law that will help children become free from child slavery. It is the very sort of thing that we need to shadow ban at once. Where are we supposed to get our child labor from with films like this? No, I want to congratulate both of you on this important project and, of course, on your assessment of what could provide a further solution beyond the important work of telling stories that help to reach the emotional resources required in order to motivate real change. And that's staggering that there is so little control over child labor and the ability of big corporations to exploit that. Next, you'll be telling me that the FDA is funded by the pharmaceutical companies that it's supposed to regulate, and that could lead to all sorts of problems. It's the sort of thing we need to look into, Mo. Tony, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much. City of Dreams is out on. Is it out now, guys? August the 30th.
Yes, it's out today. Well, tonight. The first previews are tonight.
Oh, fantastic. We'll post a link in the description for where you can see it most easily. And we'll end the show now by showing you the trailer of the movie. I enjoyed it. It's absolutely fantastic. You should go see it straight away. It's vital that you see it for all of the reasons that Mo and Tony have outlined. Tony, Mo, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us, Russell.
Thanks to you, brother.
Jesús, échale ganas del otro lado.
Atelintech mamawiltia intonali, no tlactocatzine, tihuelcuinequilis intonali. Vamos, mijo.
¿Y el chamaco, cómo está?
Está listo.
Es bueno, es bueno.
Es la decisión correcta para toda la familia.
¿Crees que mañana vas a salir a jugar a la cancha? No.
Any reason you rolled through that stop?
I'm sorry.
That's your son?
Yes.
Got any ID for the boy?
Yeah.
Watch the stops.
To a 2018 red Mustang belonging to Rodrigo Ramirez.
Rise and shine, homie. Rise and shine.
First shift 6:30, second shift 12:30. Last shift till 11, and boom, lights out at midnight. You crush it.
I know there's more of them in there.
Well, fake passport isn't going to cut it.
Yes, sir.
These people have no criminal history whatsoever.
Kind of busy shin. The busy kind.
We've got evidence that they're harboring illegals.
Request for warrant denied.
Copy that.
I'd quit poking around. Catch my drift?
truth is that as much as we want to be free, we live and we die together. This is America.
We can't continue to bring you this beautiful content without the support of our partners. America, listen up. The world is getting more and more unpredictable. Assassination attempts, rumors of civil war, unstable stock markets, and now the looming threat of bird flu. Do you know there's a bird flu summit this October? The first topic on the agenda is mass fatality management planning. Doesn't that send chills down your spine? The good news is this: you don't have to be scared if you're prepared. The wellness company created the Medical Emergency Kit. It's packed with life-saving medications like ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, antibiotics like amoxicillin and Z-Pak, and it's all backed by experts like Dr. Peter McCulloch, the kind of doctor we all need, the kind of doctor that fought for truth during COVID. This is his product. A few clicks and this kit is delivered directly to your door. Your medical emergency kit isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. Protect your family by preparing now. Head over to twc.health/brand and do use the code BRAND to ensure that you get $30 off. Do not wait till it's too late. Act now. Take control and ensure that you're protected against whatever comes next, because you know they got stuff coming next. So that's twc.health/brand and use that code BRAND to save $30. Plus, I can't even believe this, there's free shipping available right now. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.